Hello, and welcome back to another episode of GrownAssCitizens. Now, what I really want to get to is the whole situation with Ukraine. And I'm going to try to be brief because I've already discussed it a little bit. But the reason I want to talk about it at least one more time today is because of the problem of propaganda. I wish I could give up network news in the United States. I wish I could give that up for Lent. Because, and you know what? I strongly recommend that you give it up for Lent, because if you don't, you're going to have a totally wrong impression of what is going on overseas. The first question that every American citizen should be asking themselves right now is, why is the United States in Ukraine at all? Why are we in Eastern Europe? If somebody can give me a logical explanation of that does not have to do with military strategy and economic domination, because that's the real reason. If you got a reason other than that you can come up with, I would love to hear it, and you can put that in the comments. Because I really want to know, what in the world are we doing there? What are we doing in Syria? What are we doing? And in every case, you hear the same rhetoric, the same propaganda. So I said, well, let me look up and see what are some of these propaganda. Let's make it official so we can know how we're being manipulated. Propaganda. This is something I Googled. You can do it too. This is on eHow. That doesn't make it true. It just gives you something to think about. So you got first the bandwagon technique. The bandwagon technique seeks to convince people that everybody is doing it, or like something, or and so since everybody likes it, you should too. This method plays on your need for social acceptance. So if you start talking against what's going on over in Ukraine, you're not going to get public acceptance because of other propaganda techniques that are now in place, such as repetition. Okay, so they use repetition. It's the most frequently used propaganda and advertising technique. Repetition works under the assumption that the more often people hear something, the more likely they are to believe it on a subconscious level. And in politics, this is known as staying on message. Now, I've witnessed this many times. If you watch the State Department, they always have the same rhetoric. If you click over to the White House, they'll have the same rhetoric. If you hear Obama, same rhetoric. His wife, exact same wording. If you actually ran a recording of times when you hear all these different things on any given subject, you're going to hear the same wording because they are staying on message. Now, there's a movie that I always equate that concept to, called Basic Instinct. Yeah, the one with John Travolta. The whole story was a twisted sort of tale, and they told it from all the different characters' perspectives, but when in actuality the characters were all in a conspiracy together. And the woman who was from the outside observing the whole thing began to put everything together, because the first thing she started noticing is that everybody was basically staying on message. And then finally, toward the end of the movie, because it kept showing her mind flashing back to all the connecting all the dots, and everybody kept saying using the same terminology. That's the key. And he said, well, you don't have to worry about it. All you have to do is just tell the story right. And then her mind flashed, because somebody else had said that much earlier in the movie, tell the story right. Well, that is the key to propaganda, and particularly as it relates to repetition. Okay? So you'll hear the government use words like free and independent Ukraine society. That's what I'm talking about, Ukraine, I didn't forget. Or they use the word democracy, okay, a free and independent democracy. Or they'll say a stable, this is a quote from Obama, a stable and economically prosperous Ukraine, which is also something I heard him, talking about it by the State Department. Now, every time we get some information that is damaging, you don't hear any repetition of that. You might hear it one time on the mainstream media. You might hear maybe one or two things. I'll give you an example. Catherine Ashton, okay, who is the EU foreign policy chief, got a phone call from another one of a NATO member, the foreign minister from Astoria, and he's telling her, well, we've got information now that the shooters during the protests in Ukraine, the shooters that everybody said Yanukovych was responsible for shooting innocent protesters, come to find out the snipers themselves who were hired said that they were hired by protesters who told them to shoot at the Yanukovych police and to shoot at the protesters. Now, why would the protesters be telling the snipers to shoot at the protesters? Why would they do that? Either to make it look like Yanukovych was shooting on the protesters, okay, or to create this dissension and confusion so that nobody knew who was shooting who, and it would be easy to blame Yanukovych. Well, that worked very well, and Catherine Ashton has yet to speak about it, respond to it, and the State Department right now is pretending like it didn't happen. And when people from the Associated Press and other reporters started asking her about it, she changed the subject. Okay, so that's kind of how they do it when you disrupt the propaganda machine. And then the other thing I want to tell you, because of the propaganda that's going on in Ukraine about Putin, I just want to let you know some truths that you're not going to hear on CNN or KABC or whatever your local news network is, because they're a part of the propaganda machine. First of all, Crimea is an autonomous republic. It's called the Autonomous Republic of Crimea. It has its own prime minister and its own parliament. And it is important that everybody recognize that they actually asked Russia to stand with them so that they can protect their little peninsula. Okay, and the Crimean Sea has been, and that area, Crimea, has been a key military hub for the likes of folks like the Bulgars, the Greeks, the Scythians, the Goths, the Huns, the Khazars, the Ottoman Turks, the Tatars, and the Mongols. So this has been a prime area, a strategic area for military power, over the centuries. And so they, the United States of America, they know that Russia has their fleet over there in the Crimean Sea, and they already know that they have a relationship with the Crimean people and the Crimean parliament. So they can keep telling everybody that Russia has invaded Crimea, but Russia's relationship with Crimea existed long before their military relationship with Crimea it existed long before. Okay, this incident with Ukraine and Kiev falling apart. And the other thing that is important that everybody knows is that there's lots of oil pipe going through Ukraine and through Crimea, okay, out to the rest of Europe. So what they really want to do is control the flow of oil from Russia. But, it's kind of a dumb move because Russia, of course, knows that and is not going to let that happen. Just like when Saddam Hussein started blowing up his own oil fields because he said, I know what you're over here for, but you're going to walk over here, but you're going to left back. See, invasion doesn't necessarily happen on a military level when you're dealing with masterminds of systemic and global takeover. It has to do with propaganda. They've got the U.S. people convinced we must need to be over there. We don't, but they got us convinced that we do. They're working on it. That's why you keep seeing it, keep seeing it, keep seeing it. And they're going to keep doing that. So then that way, when you hear that they want to send $1 billion, $1 billion, $1 billion, $1 billion to Ukraine to try to prop up their economy, you mean to tell me you would put $1 billion over there? Not to mention the other resources that they're going to give in kind as far as technical support and all that kind of stuff. You're going to do all of that. And we got people over here hungry, people living on the street, people cracking up, going crazy, people who can't afford Obama no care. That's what, how about Obama don't care? That's what we gonna call it. Obama don't care. And so that's where we are now, where if you cannot protect yourself from propaganda, you're going to believe the hype. And if you believe the hype, you're going to take the wrong pill and you're going to remain illusioned. Okay, but it's time for everybody to get disillusioned. But you know what? At this point, you must be born again. You must be spiritually born again. And I'm talking about your mind, your thinking. Your mind must be renewed. Your thinking, your politics, everything, whatever you think or thought was true up until now, you need to go back and question it and make sure that you are believing in, acting upon something that's really concrete truth. Because if they try to start a war, because you know that's what they want to do, they want to have a world war. They want to have a world war. They want to crash the global economy. They want to, because there's too many people on the planet. They don't even care how many people die. We're obsolete as a species. They just need a few of us to do some of the stuff they're going to need done, I guess, at the FEMA camps. And I'm not tooting Putin's horn either. He is ex-KGB, and who knows what heinous things he may have done himself. But the point is, at this point in our journey, grown-ass citizens, we must choose the truth. We cannot keep following this illusion of truth that is promulgated by perpetual propaganda. PPP. Promulgated by perpetual propaganda. It just never ends. It's Lent, and I'm going to say, why don't you fast mainstream media for the next 30 days? Why don't you boycott that? Why don't you boycott the lie and spend that time searching all over? There's so much technology now, you can find anything. You can get videos of people right in the middle of the square, just on their phone, taking a video. You can look at the real picture of what's going on around the world. And you know what? As soon as they get this economic IMF bank, in its International Monetary Fund bank set up in Ukraine, in Kiev, you're not going to hear nothing else about them either, because the objective was to get an positioning right as close as they could in Eastern Europe to Russia, because they're getting ready to try to fight Russia and probably China eventually. China just being real quiet right now, but I guarantee you, as things get tougher, it's gonna come down to just a handful of leaders that they're gonna have to fight them, because they're not going to bow down. Okay, we are world bullies, and this imperialistic mindset has been in place for too long. Come on, y'all. Get busy. Stop running around on your hamster wheel, worried about your next dollar. Okay, shake yourself and look around. Those of you who have the mind to do it, look around. Those of you who think you're exempt, recognize that you're not exempt, and that you're part of a bigger whole, and the things that are happening to the poor are coming right up behind you, and they're going to be right on your heels. So you thinking right now you have escaped something, but you haven't. So you being bamboozled. They know what kind of words trigger fear in you. National security. Why do you think they use that, national security? They make you think that we're nationally insecure and we need some security, right? In this world we're living in, somebody's got to win and somebody's got to lose. The powers that be have no concept of win-win. They have no concept of community. So if we as grown-ass citizens don't stand up as community, then we get what we deserve. If we don't stand up for freedom, we deserve to not be free. And oh yeah, just so you know, they're going to start the same thing over here eventually. We probably the last frontier. No, they're not going to do it right now. But you just let them get a couple more countries destabilized and crash this dollar and put us all on some new money crack. And then they want to get the chip in us so that if you ain't cooperating, and Rockefeller said that, we want to get the chip in them, so if they don't cooperate, we turn their chip off. They won't be able to do a damn thing, man. So that's really the objective eventually. So enjoy yourself while you can. Stop shopping. Give up shopping. There does not need to be any consumerism right now. Don't buy a car. Don't buy a house. Don't buy some clothes. Don't go to Target. Don't go to Walmart. Stop shopping. And if you must shop, do it for the purpose of stockpiling. Okay? So you'll be able to survive. Because you remember in the days of Noah, Noah kept telling them, I'm building this ark because the Lord said a rain is coming, and nobody believed him. Now, is that a true story? It doesn't matter. The lesson, just like an Aesop fable, is prepare for the future. All right? So God bless, and you guys have a great evening. I'll be back at you very shortly. Thank you. Peace and blessings.
adversary. I'll be your